I'm going to kick things off, and then I'm going to pass you over to Matt. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, let's get going. So, who are we? Well, apart from being Cyborgs 1 and 2, I'm Tony. This is our Easy, so this is our elephant that we give out for a piece of good work that's happened throughout the week, just a nice way of capturing an element of happiness throughout the week. I'm one of the co-founders, and I'm also the head of Happiness Innovation. What that means is I get to play a lot, experiment a lot, have a lot of fun, look into what the future holds and try and make the future a reality today. So I have an amazing role within the Happiness Index. And here's Matt, our head of robots. Do you just want to say a few words?
So yeah, this is me. I'm Matt Stannard, head of robots. Tony's real job is to pre-approve all of my ideas.
Thanks, Henry.
And I'm not trying to strangle myself with a cable in that picture. So yeah, that's me.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Seamless. So yeah, as I said, we live in the future. Does anyone know who this guy is?
Marty McFly.
Marty McFly, yeah. Brilliant. What film is this?
Back to the Future.
Which one?
2, 3.
2, yeah, we've got an expert down here. What's he on? A hoverboard. We were all meant to be on these by now. Anyone remember his trainers? What happened with the trainers? Yeah, the pumps. One of them got sold recently in an auction for like $100,000. And he had a jacket. Anyone remember the jacket? This is a more obscure one.
Self-drying.
Self-drying. It was one size, you press a button and it fits you. So it's like tailored clothing all in one go. So that's the power of technology. We're not quite there yet, but we are living in the future. The cool thing about that is we get to go and do some really great stuff. So we went over to Cloud Next, which is in San Francisco. It's a massive conference for Google Cloud, looking at the future of technology. There were 42,000 people there this year, and a lot of our ideas, the way that we think about technology and our robots, the way that we build that AI into our products, we get from there. And we also got to go to the baseball as well. So we had some fun when we were there.
Although I was fascinated. So I follow football, I follow Ipswich, and I think our fan base is probably the only other fan base that celebrates getting relegated. After like 16 years in the championship, I think we want to change. But the baseball, they all come out and they're all swinging their bat, but I don't think I saw anyone hit the ball.
But in true American style, there was lots of whooping and hollering, and it seemed like everyone knew what was happening apart from us. Yeah, there we go. We got one in there. Perfect. So before we kind of create a Anglo-American war, we are going to head on to why we work in the way that we do. So before looking forward, we're going to have a little view backwards. So I've got a timeline, not going to go through all of this for you because I will bore you, but some of the things I wanted to highlight out here. Early 1800s, so a little bit, Matt, where are you? You had your rules of the mill. 14, 16-hour days with an all. The Bank Holidays Act, so we're in the middle of bank holiday season. The reason why we have all of those lovely bank holidays dates back to 1871. The Hours of Work Convention in 1919, so this is where 50 countries got together and decided we can't carry on like this, we're bringing 8-hour working days. And does anyone think that the UK was part of that treaty? Put your hands up if you think we were. Alright, we got 3 very optimistic people. We weren't, of course we weren't involved in that. And then the reason for showing you this slide is to say that the way in which we work, and looking at technology in particular, a lot of it dates back in terms of the working days and so on, dates back to before the light bulb was invented. So surely there has to be a modern way of working and how we transition into the future. We've got inventions of World Wide Web, release of the iPhone, AI in the cloud. All of these things are changing and bringing back some of the things that we heard about before, like tight and loose from Drew. This all provides us to be loose in our organisations in terms of the way that we work. Also, the social impact on the structure of the way that we work is changing. So, social views on feedback. Who likes giving feedback? How many people do it on a regular basis? How many times do you ask for feedback in a general week? Pretty much every time you buy anything online. We are so used to giving feedback now. But also what we have is we have a growing workforce who want to get more feedback. They want to understand what they're doing well, how can they improve, how can we make progress, how can we coach people through, and feedback's playing a much bigger part in that. Flexible ways in working. People want more flexibility. So a really good example of this, I was working from home yesterday, dropped my kids off at school, went home, worked exactly the same as if I was in the office. I phoned Matt. Matt was at Costa. The car was in a quick fit, just having its service. He and I were having a conversation as if we were in the office. We don't need to be chained to the offices anymore. Job security. For many people, that's a thing of the past. It's no longer a job for life. So people are used to moving around more often than they have been before. The best way of keeping these people is to do a lot of the things that Henry's mentioned. Drew mentioned them earlier as well. It's about how do we take people and put them into a opportunity to thrive, and how do we make it fun and enjoyable for them in order to do that. And then fluid workforces, so we've got things like the gig economy coming up now, representing new challenges for people within the profession. All of that is underpinned by freedom to be human. So freedom to be human is our vision. So as Matt said earlier, it's about a feeling. And freedom has been mentioned in pretty much every single talk that we've had today. And that's how valuable it is. The tech impact on the way in which we work is huge. So we had the Industrial Revolution. Then all of a sudden, machinery started coming in and we think, oh, how on earth are we going to survive as a country and as a global economy? Then the service industry came in. Can I just say that is Barclays, but other banks are available. It was the only thing I could find on Google Images which suited the image that I wanted. And then we are starting to move out of the service industry, particularly financials with the crash, with Brexit. Sorry, I get 2 extra points, don't I? Are we trying to get more points or less points? I can't remember.
I think that means beer's on you, doesn't it?
I think it does. Yeah, they are anyway, so that's not a problem. But we're moving out of the service industry, and does anyone have an idea of where we're heading next? Bearing in mind this is my opinion, I can't predict the future, but does anyone have an idea of where we might be heading? Information?
It's the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah, there is kind of a fourth industrial revolution. It's quite a popular one. That's not my current opinion of where we're heading. It's about experience. It is all about taking what we do within our roles and creating the right experiences for our staff and for our customers. And that's where I genuinely think that we are heading. It's kind of service, but on steroids. No longer is it all around our phone Sky, for example, because Matt and I were talking about this the other day. Press 1 for this, press 2 for that, and you're just getting an infinite loop. It's actually starting to come now. People want an experience. So that's why you're seeing things like First Bank doing so well, because they do build it around a people experience. And that's where I think that we're going to be heading in the future. Then there's internal pressures, so put your hands up if you recognise any of these. Have you got more or less access to data than you've ever had before? Do you know what to do with it? Okay, so that's one of the pressures, because you're being asked to use data more often. Provide greater flexibility. So this is a picture that's on our website. This one strikes a chord with me because another bedtime story missed. Sometimes we have to make choices about putting work before family. And that's really hard for a parent. So I have 2 young children. My favourite time of day is bedtime. Not because they go to bed and I don't see them. But because that's the time where we sit down, they're peaceful, they're quiet, we're reading, my son's learning to read, we read just before bedtime. That's a really, has anyone taught somebody to read before? Yeah? It's an amazing, fulfilling experience, and that's something that if I miss out on that, I feel sad. So it's all about providing greater flexibility where I don't have to miss that, but we've got a partner in the US, and once the kids are in bed, we have our phone calls with them. So Matt and I jump on a conference call at 9 in the evening because they're in San Francisco. But we'd rather do that than earlier on in the day and miss bedtime. So it's about being flexible in the ways that we work. And then it's about improving that employee experience. So the future structure. So Clive, who's going to be speaking later on, he coaches us. So all of the things that Henry mentioned around coaches and having good coaches and asking you questions, and sometimes I tell Clive, I don't want you to ask me a question. This isn't a learning opportunity, just tell us what to do. And at that point he asked me, Why do you want it to be a learning opportunity? And at that point, I will either walk out or I'll just do what Matt did and just go silent and stuff like that. So, does anyone recognise this structure of work? How many people work in this way? Most people around the room. So this is the old hierarchical structure. This is control, this is command, this is how we operate. So as Drew touched on earlier, this is, we tell you what to do, you do it, and that gets passed down the line. So the way in which we work, and I've mentioned I'm using examples of ourselves because I didn't think it was right to use examples from our clients and the way that we work with them. But we use an organic structure within the Happiness Index, and the reason why we do that is because we have three distinct areas of our business. We have the engine area, which I head up, we have brand, which Chris heads up, and Matt heads up the growth side of our business. We don't have a CEO, but we are all bound by the values and the vision of our organisation. And that is where we can see businesses moving to in the future. And it isn't around command and control, it's about giving people the resources and the flexibility to do their roles. You employed them for a reason, they're obviously good at their roles, otherwise they wouldn't be there with you. So it's about giving them that trust and that empowerment. So using data to enhance the employee experience, so I'm just going to run through a couple of graphs for you here. So this is average score within the Happiness Index by weather. And what you can see is people are most happy when it is moderately raining. And actually, if you look down, we've got sunny and heavy rain being pretty much the same. So weather is an important factor, but how can we use that to enhance the employee experience if we're thinking about we're moving into an experience-based industry? So I'm going to highlight heavy rain here. So how important is it to go and get a walk at lunchtime? Get some fresh air? Yeah? Got lots of nodding heads here, brilliant. How many people do that when it's raining heavily? So straight away you've got people within your organisation not outside, not getting their fresh air, not getting their breaks, sitting at their desk because it's raining. We can't control whether it rains, but what we can control is we can control the employee experience because we have the data that tells us how that impacts people's moods. So the first thing that you can do is order sandwiches in. So get a local sandwich shop, just come to your office, because if people don't eat and they're not fueled up and they're trying to survive on the free fruit that might be in the office, if you have free fruit in the office, I've tried it a couple of times, you get really grumpy towards the end of the day. So bringing in some food is an option. Umbrellas. How many people have umbrellas in as you walk into the building? Okay, we've got quite a few. How many have enough? Say that if 50 people wanted to go out? No one? So again, putting umbrellas in your office is a really good example of just giving people the opportunity to go out and not be affected by the weather. And also that doesn't mean just ask for feedback when it's moderately raining as well. That's not the point. Okay, transitioning from SaaS, so working within the engine team, we hear a lot about SaaS and the drive towards SaaS and software as a service. That's brilliant because you get your customers to do all the work for you and you just provide the framework. You don't need loads of people in the back end and so on. But I see that there is a transitioning happening, moving away from SaaS. So if we're transitioning away and we're building an experience-based industry, what does that look like? So first of all, you need really cool robots. That's where Matt comes in. Adding to that, the human element. That's where you start building software for humans. That's really what it's about. It's about taking the best that technology can offer, applying that with great people, and creating that software for humans. And what that means to us is that everything that we do needs to be fast. It needs to be smart, so it needs to be intuitive. We'll show you some of the technology in a moment of what the future looks like in terms of exploring data without having to be an expert. And then also building it around an experience. And at that point, I'm going to hand over to Matt.
Cool, thank you. Can you do the clickery thing for me, just because I saw it earlier go backwards and forwards, and it's bound to happen to me as well?
It'll be my pleasure, Matt.
I may be ahead of robots, but I absolutely hate presentations, PowerPoint, things like that. I just like making things work.
Okay, so, do you want to give me the nod, secret handshake, how are we going to do this?
No, just if you just play through this slide, I think we've got everything on there. Okay, so being someone from a technology background, a lot has changed. In the old world, you might have had an IT department, you might have had equipment on site, you might have had a desktop on your sitting on your desk, a big tower, and you may work in an office with hundreds of desks everywhere. And then things have changed quite recently, and they still evolve. Amazon came along, and they built a really good network of dispatching sort of books and things like that. And then they allowed others to use their technology. Google built an amazing infrastructure around search that makes us find things really, really quickly. And then they realised by doing that, they'd create a framework and a foundation for everybody to be able to consume and use that. So we've got this big boom in being able to have resources bigger than the biggest company in the world without having to have all that infrastructure that goes with it. And that sort of has then led to this cloud-based architecture. You don't need to be in an office anymore. So you could be on a laptop on the beach like that, just don't get sand in it. And you've got places like WeWork or BizWorks or whatever, where you don't actually have to have a huge office space anymore. You can rock up, find a desk and meet really cool people. So this whole workplace dynamic has changed, and tech is helping facilitate that change. You can go to the next one now. Cool. So when we've got better tech, it helps us measure more. So one thing that I find fascinating is the growth of data. Jana touched on it about her bits of paper, which is real kudos, that's amazing. My kids would have drawn funny pictures on that, I'd have gone mad. But if you just think about today here at Happiness and Humans, how much data do we generate? So if we just look at people in the room, we obviously have got everybody here. We might know like your gender, where you work, I don't know what your job title is, so there's a lot of data around there. We're in between you and lunch, which hopefully means that we won't be too long. But we could go and watch what you eat for lunch, so we're generating even more data there. And then, as we work for a feedback company, we're going to go and ask you for feedback, so we generate even more data. So technology is letting us capture that, so what we generate is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, as Tony said, how much data do we generate in a day? So just to sort of frame some of that, every second, there are 40,000 web searches on Google. That's quite a few. Every minute, 120 people join LinkedIn. Now, you don't think that doesn't sound like very many, but if you think that's every minute, every day, forever. We send 16 million SMS messages every minute and 156 million emails. And probably that's because they're like, oh, did you see my last email? Did you see my so again, you have to take some of these with a pinch of salt, but it just shows that technology is letting us do more and more and more and more. So each day in the Happiness Index, we collect between 5,000 and 10,000 pieces of feedback. So in the future, we've got more and more tools that we're trying to sort of push out there. So we've got sort of modules that we're working on at the moment. We've brought in Always On, so essentially you can give feedback whenever you like rather than being asked. But you've also got things like the Internet of Things. How many people have heard of that? How many people have got smart light bulbs? Pretty cool. So you've got all these devices that are actually just generating even more data, and they can feed back into all of this stuff. So traditional data sets are just going to be enriched more and more as the future sort of rolls on. Sorry, I'm looking at this. So look at that wonderful image there. More. So that sort of then moves into the realms of what does the future look like in terms of where we work. And smart buildings are something that have been around for quite a while. People thought, you know what, let's build these really cool buildings that can talk to each other. If it's going to be a hot day, they can put the air conditioning on earlier, or they can work out how often our doors are open and become more energy efficient. But people are now actually working on, well, let's look within those buildings. Let's look at how people move around those buildings. Let's look and see whether they're happy in this area or happy in that area. Where are they most productive? Where, if the people are all gathered here and the carbon dioxide goes up, does it mean that people are less happy? So buildings are going to start to sort of be more adaptive to the workplace as we're able to collect more data. We can then take this data and we can visualize it. So one of the most simplest visualizations is just looking at heat maps and look for things that are red, because we're all told from a young age red is danger. We can also use correlation analysis or deep machine learning to essentially see what things we could do would help us drive change. So the more we do this, the more efficient we're going to get. And I think Tony showed you the one that I like, which because it's easy, where you enrich your data with weather data. But even the thing that shocked me was when I was looking at average comment sentiment. So we run all our feedback comments through sentiment analysis to see if it's positive or negative. And people tended to give better feedback earlier in the day, which I found quite interesting. So I'm going to pray to some demo gods because I wanted just to show that these things are changing even more, and being a head of robots, I love playing with technology. And two of the areas, we can put them both on side by side, is essentially we've been training a model to recognise how happy people are by their face. It's a bit weird when Matt Phelan submits a picture of a dog last night when he was testing it. So I'm sad, I said, Matt, that's a dog. But if you've got a mobile phone, there's a URL, thehappinessindex.com/HIH/face. On there you should have two buttons. One will let you take a selfie of yourself, and the second one will upload it. It will run it against our model, and it might take a bit of time. I was hoping in Google's office, because it uses Google's machine learning, it would be quick, but I think big images on phones nowadays take a bit of time to upload, but it should come back to you with a score. I'd love to know whether you're happy or not.
So shall we, you take that half, I'll take this half, in true like Panto style?
As I say, I haven't tried it with a group of people, so let's see if we could do it.
So that's how we go. Okay, what are we going to do on our side? Don't all say it at once. We're going to do pictures. Anyone want to text? Pictures, okay, we'll take pictures.
On my side, I'm going to see if I can do a group shot and see what it says.
Right, has anyone got an output yet? 83%. Does that say happy or sad?
Sad.
Oh! Yeah. Anyone else got an output from this yet? Yeah, we got a 93% happy here.
Hey, look, we're 98% happy.
All right, you win, Matt. Your side's happier than my side. I've got an 86% sad over here. Outrageous.
Now, if it says you're sad or you're 95% likely of being sad, it doesn't mean that you are sad. It means that what I've trained it with is it hasn't got enough information to be able to judge that.
Yeah.
So, again, one of the things people forget with machine learning is it's about teaching the machine. It doesn't know everything. It needs to be taught whether it's right or wrong.
So yeah, did everyone catch the point that Matt made about whether it's happy or sad and how machine learning works? Did everyone hear that bit? So essentially machine learning works by, you teach the model. So it's about computers being taught to think like humans. There's often a tendency to think that because it's coming from a computer it's got to be right all the time. But it keeps changing and that's why you keep teaching it. So we had a heavily sad over this end, but an incredibly happy person. Is that right?
Smiley face.
A smiley face. So what we would then do is we'd go into the back end and we'd correct that and say that's not a sad face, that's a happy face. And then over time you keep doing that with more and more images that you have, and that's how the computers learn, and that's how the artificial intelligence works.
We're getting hurried along a bit, Tony, in this between lunch. So
Yeah. We've also lost the screen as well.
That's what happens when you do live demos.
Alright, so we're going to blitz through the final bit. We've got a couple bit more pieces to talk through. Okay, Matt.
So, one of the other things that I find super interesting is I'm going to call them surfaces. Essentially, how do we give feedback? So email is something we do a lot of, but I've got a Google Home here that I'm going to hopefully talk to, but go back a sec. But we've got WhatsApp, we've got kiosks. Information can come to us from anywhere, so we need to embrace all of these different touch points rather than rely on staff responding to an email or something like that. So we're looking at creative ways of doing things, but not only in asking for feedback, but also in getting information back. So I'm hoping, if Tony skips through, that the future is going to be able to talk to your data, so we could actually have a conversation and ask for information. So this is just showing that what you might talk to a Google Home, and you might be sat there and just wondering this question. I'm really hoping it's going to work. It does struggle to understand my voice sometimes.
All right, I'm
but
going
let's
to put
see.
the mic next to the Google Home.
Hey Google, talk to the happiness index.
All right, let's get the test version of the happiness index. Hello and welcome to Happiness and Humans. I'm Quokka. How can I help?
How do engine compare to brand?
Sorry, there's been a problem finding the departments and...
How do growth compare to engine?
Sorry, there's been a problem. How did growth and...
I was always told never work with animals, kids, or technology. I now fully appreciate why.
One more go. How do growth compare to engine?
Sorry, there's been a problem finding the departments and...
So it obviously struggles to understand my voice despite practicing it. If you want to see it working, come out. The phone.
Say that again.
You get heckled now, guys.
Minus tech points from the demo gods. If you do want, it does work. If you want to come and see it, we can do it on the phone. The phone's a bit better at picking up than the home. I think the microphone doesn't work. But the point I'm trying to make is that we've enabled for our API the ability to be able to talk to a voice bot and actually ask questions to get feedback. So you don't have to log in the system and find out things in the graph. You can just say, hey, look, how's this doing? And it will tell you the answer. And then the last thing is around, for me, is transparency. We get asked for feedback an awful lot. Like, I'm a Sky customer. They ask me for all this time to give feedback. They never tell me what they do with it. So one of the things I really feel that we need to do more about is actually play that back to the people that give feedback. Let them know what you're doing, what's changed, and how that's going to impact their job. And that's something that Matt P says a lot. It's not feedback fatigue is not necessarily something that people would suffer from if they didn't have action fatigue. So I'm going to hand back to Tony just to wrap up and give a summary, and then hopefully panel and lunch.
Yeah, absolutely. So just very quick points. I'm not going to read through these because they're on the slide. You can see them all. But advances in tech are making it easier for us to work from anywhere than before. The way in which people want to work is also changing, and as organisations, we need to adapt to that. They're going to happen, these changes. So embrace them, because if you don't, you're going to start losing talent. And then you're going to find it harder to kind of recruit those people in the first places. Try and build them into your processes, the ways in which you work, so this tight and loose opportunity that Drew mentioned earlier on. Don't try and enforce this upon people, but do try and provide some guidelines. We saw earlier from Henry's talk, people like operating with freedom, but within a controlled space. Don't force people to adapt, you help them evolve. One of the things that we do within the engine team is, because we're seeing these innovations and we're playing, we don't try and enforce this on people. We want people to come along at their own speed, because that's when you'll get true buy-in. And also, embrace the experience revolution. I truly believe that is going to be where we head moving forward. People are getting more and more frustrated and annoyed with not being able to speak to people, not experiencing a good time when they're either in a restaurant, dealing with an organisation. So I firmly believe, as I said before, that we are moving into that experience industry. And I will pass you back to Matt.
Thank you very much.